So a year ago today, I was saved. I did not grow up in the faith. My parents are not Christians in any way. They aren't religious in any way. They're still not believers. My life has sort of been a lot of ups and downs. I struggle a lot with mental illness. My parents were never married, so a lot of it was going back and forth between houses. They ended up both moving to Maine at some point in time, and I've spent most of my life being 50-50 custody between the two of them. It was sort of like that's a big thing for me that characterized a lot of my life. It was a lot of like going back and forth, moving between houses, a lot of that stuff. So my mom was married. She married somebody when I was a young child. I don't really remember when. I don't honestly remember him all that much. He was a Christian for a long time, and we went to church occasionally. But again, I was very young and I don't really remember a lot of it. Growing up, I would probably say that I was pretty prejudiced against Christians, not because I knew a lot of their story and I didn't agree with it, but more of that I didn't know anything. So I kind of had the typical college experience, sleeping around and drinking and those kinds of things. So I think, especially when I was working in a restaurant, I was drinking a lot and I was sort of around people that aren't necessarily looking out for the right things in life. And it was just sort of a very toxic work environment, which is where I met my boyfriend, Ben. I knew he was a Christian, but we didn't really talk about it. He didn't go to church. It wasn't that big of a part of our relationship. We didn't talk about it at all. And it didn't seem that important. He ended up moving in with me into my apartment when we first started dating. When I graduated college, it was time to move out of my apartment, so we ended up coming to here in Connecticut, and we moved back to his hometown. So we moved in together when we moved here, and we started coming to New Day because all of his family came here, his grandparents come here, his brothers come here, and his parents come here. So we started coming along just to come along, and it was just sort of a family thing that we did, and that consistency was really nice. When we moved here, I was sort of the one that was more intentional about coming to church because I really wanted to be here and I wanted to be with his family, and I wanted sort of that consistent part in my day, or in my week. And then I was probably coming here for about 3 months before I started to, understand and sort of get the lay of the land. And for me, I appreciate history a lot, so I started understanding biblical stories a little bit more. When I was sort of learning about those stories and understanding those stories, I think part of it was a lot of conviction, like, why am I not following this? Like, how could I not follow it if it's so true, or what I believe to be so true? So I think that moment when I did accept Christ was very, there was a lot of clarity, I think. It wasn't sort of like a dramatic moment, I wasn't I don't know. There wasn't a super dramatic moment, but it was things just became sort of clear. It was the thing to do, and it made sense for me to do this in my life at that time. I honestly probably didn't tell him that I was saved for a good couple of weeks because I think I just wanted to sort of sit in it and be with Jesus in that moment, rather than sort of involve everybody. So it's been a whole year. Because I wasn't raised in faith and religion of any kind, it was sort of growing in that understanding of the biblical stories and just the word in general. So walking with him and hearing him, per se, his words and what he has to say and who he is, that was just a big part of the journey for me, was that I was more able to know who he is and who he says I am, and then who I am with him. So I think a lot of what my time at New Day has been is just a big mental shift, which is a lot of unlearning and relearning things in light of what God says about me, or in light of what God says about life. I was baptized, and that was a really amazing experience. I was baptized with my boyfriend and his brother, so that was very special. but it was a very busy day, so there was it's just a lot of like, I don't know, there was a lot of people, so it was nice. And I guess it was a big step for me to invite my family who aren't believers, so that was interesting. I think it was hard for my mom in that she doesn't necessarily understand it as I also didn't understand it, but it was a big step for me to invite her, just sort of, again, declaring my faith publicly. So, yeah. I think in a way it's been a very personal journey for both of us. When I was saved, we made the decision to move out and sort of wait for marriage, if and when that comes, or being very intentional with how we spend our time together, not seeing each other as much necessarily, not trying to like spend all of our time together, but also spend alone time, but also spending time together with God. That's really important for us. I suffer a lot with like codependency, so I am the kind of person that's like all in and I want to spend all my time with somebody. So I try to like really put those boundaries up in terms of like just not always being together, or always needing to do something with one person kind of thing. So I also struggle a lot with mental illness, so that has been a big part of my journey with Christ, in that I've been seeking him out more in that, and knowing that he will use all of my trials for his glory is a big part of my life right now. My life has been characterized through a lot of up and downs, and coming to New Day, I've been sort of able to intentionally make a lot of choices in my life that have been more biblical and more good for me, particularly in my relationships with others. My boyfriend, we are intentionally making the decision to change our life for God and walk on his road, not our own. And not that I don't suffer with like depression or anxiety still. I do still suffer from those things a lot, but I know that he will use them, and I know that, you know, all of these evil things will be turned to good. So, yeah. Here at New Day, I don't serve with the kids anymore. I did for a little while, but I now greet at the door, and I love saying hello to everybody. I love greeting everybody with a smile and saying good morning. It's a big highlight of my Sunday morning, and I love small groups. This semester I'm taking 4 small groups, so it might be a little too much in terms of time, but yeah, I just really love having that fellowship with others, sort of a more in-depth study of God's Word. I like to learn, and so that sort of is always an interest for me. Right now I'm in a season of growing and learning about Jesus every day, and that's something that I really appreciate and really love. I accepted Jesus into my life, and it's been sort of the best decision I could have made.